But you know what I realized? I realized that I was looking like everyone else. Everyone looked the same. And if you really are honest with yourself and you start looking at all of your competition, if you start looking at all the agencies out there, what you're going to see is a bunch of Me Too agencies. What's up, agency owners? Today, Hurricane Irma is coming through. It kind of went through Florida already, or I guess it's getting out of Florida and coming into Georgia. And so we're under some warnings. I may be taking cover soon. But today is not that busy of a day because a lot of meetings actually got canceled. I had someone stand me up for the podcast, Shame on You. And I'm about to do a webinar for an organization on showing them the right systems that they need in order to generate leads and really build that predictable pipeline. I'm going to take you along on that. I remember when I was running my agency, I remember the struggles that we would have with constantly relying on word of mouth or referrals, right? I know word of mouth and referrals are all great, but those are things that you don't control. And then I also remember too of going, not charging enough. And I've talked to so many agency owners in the past couple of years, and I even remember it myself. Almost every agency owner is not charging enough. And I really think it comes down to because they don't have a predictable pipeline, right? They don't have that predictable pipeline that they can, depend on and rely on in order to be able to be selective and be selective with the clients that you actually want and say no to the clients you don't want. I always have a motto that there's no such thing as a bad agency client. There's only a bad prospect or a bad process. And most of the time, it's a bad prospect that you let in, but you constantly keep looking at, payroll and all the expenses that we have coming up, and we don't make the best decisions. I've fallen in this trap. I can make fun of you guys because I've done it 1,000 times. I've taken on that client going, no, they'll be different. And I bet if you started looking back at how many times this has happened to you, you'd probably be the same way. And so I was like, well, what can I do, right? What can I do to get rid of these bad prospects and to attract the right prospects? So I started looking all around. I started looking at some of the bigger agency websites. I started going to this website, looking around. I'm going, oh, maybe I need to put a big H. Don't know what that means. Maybe it's help. Or maybe I need to, look at this website of going like on their copy and like imitate like some of their things. Or maybe I need to put some, superpowers in there. But you know what I realized? I realized that I was looking like everyone else. Everyone looked the same. And if you really are honest with yourself and you start looking at all of your competition, if you start looking at all the agencies out there, what you're going to see is a bunch of Me Too agencies. So are you a Me Too agency? And then I started figuring out, when I started looking at it going, I'm a Me Too agency, I knew I needed to make a change, but I really didn't know where to start, right? And I knew the problem really existed in, I didn't have the right systems in place to, kind of scale and grow our agency, to the next level. And this is kind of what my vision for the agency looked like. I mean, when I think back at how I started, I'll tell you how I started in just a moment, but I was kind of an accidental entrepreneur. I was an accidental agency owner. And I bet a lot of you probably fell into this route as well, of going, you knew how to do something cool in marketing or design or development, and you started an agency or whatever you want to call it. And I know agency owners don't want to be called agencies because agencies have a bad stigma, but you're an agency. And I didn't know where we were going. And I didn't know how to communicate that to my team until I started getting clarity. And this is really the first system. And this is really one of the most important systems that you need within your agency to truly grow it. Because how do you know where to go and what to say yes to, what to say no to, if you don't know the end destination or something close to the end destination, rather than being that accidental entrepreneur, right? So for years and years, for literally about thinking back, probably about 4 or 5 years, we didn't have a vision. We didn't know where we were going, okay? We didn't know what to say no to. We didn't have a particular niche or niche that we're going after. We didn't have a specialization. We kept saying we were a full service agency. We need to go into what's the story that we're going to tell. And the story has everything to do with you making sure that you're not the Me Too agency, that you're this thing that has been bugging their office, that you can actually help them out. Like, for example, when you go back to this website, right, it says, we are, right, or I am, right? It's all making yourself the star in your prospect's story. Think about when you go up to someone at a conference and you meet someone at that conference and they constantly keep talking about themselves. Are you wanting to talk with them longer, or are you trying to run away? You're probably trying to run away. Now, if a different person comes up to you and he's constantly asking you questions, making you the star in your story, you're going to be like, I like this guy or girl, right? Because they're making you the star in your story. But if you're making yourself Batman and constantly talking about yourself, like even if you go to my About page, if you go to my About page at jasonswenk.com/about, I don't even talk about myself until the very bottom because no one cares. I ask questions. I want to make you the prospect, the visitor, the hero, the star in your story. Because if I don't make you the star in the story, you're going to be Robin. And no one wants to wear those ugly green tights, right? Where you need to position yourself, because you're probably asking, like, what do I do? What do I do? You need to position yourself as Alfred. You need to position yourself as the trusted advisor. They have a problem. They want to get to a certain point. You are that bridge. You are that trusted advisor in order to help them get there quicker and easier. How many are you making your prospects Robin? How many are just talking about yourself, your portfolio, your people, your process, all of these things, and highlighting yourself as the hero in their own story? But you want to really make sure you position yourself as a trusted advisor.